Congratulations, you got a puppy. Nutrition is key for a healthy, happy pup. Even with the best diets, puppies may lack all the vital nutrients they need. Standard processed veterinary formulas help to fill those nutritional gaps. Our products work at the cellular level for tip-top health. Our supplements are based on whole food ingredients. We grow more than 80% of raw plant ingredients on our own certified organic farm. These whole food ingredients are the same ones that go into our human products, too. Adding a pup to the family is the beginning of a special journey. Make standard processed veterinary formulas and proper nutrition a key part of your pup's long, healthy life. Join the Pup Club today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fernanda Lopez. I am the PR manager here at Helen Woodward Animal Center, and we're so excited to be joined by some awesome panelists. This is the San Diego Children's Book Authors Panel here at PAWmicon. And we have some awesome stuff coming up. We're going to be learning about these San Diego children's book authors, how you guys got started, what inspires their writing, and we're going to hear some valuable advice too about those for those looking to jumpstart their careers in writing. So first, I'm going to introduce our moderator for this evening, and that's Betty Molenbrock. She is an educator, reading specialist, and founder and former CEO of United Through Reading, and the founder and current president of Reading Legacies. She's received so many prestigious awards, like the L'Oreal Paris Women of Worth National Honoree of 2018, and the Daughters of the American Revolution Medal of Honor. And that's a national award given to a person who has made unusual and lasting contributions to our American heritage. So we're so excited, Betty, to have you join us and moderate this panel. So I'm going to let you go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with these talented people, and I can't wait to hear more about your inspiring stories. So thank you for this privilege. I would first introduce Tara Gilroy and a little bit about Tara. It's so interesting how unique each person is, and so it's fun to share about each of your backgrounds. Her background is in fine arts, and she has written a lot of children and middle school age children's books and found the inspiration. I'll let her share that more later, but from reading and writing books for middle school age, which is so unique. And then I next would introduce Lauren, and Lauren has a personal connection to Reading Legacies. She has read a story on our Reading Legacy Storytime. Thank you, Lauren. Darling book and darling interpretation. And Lauren's interest, it seems to be mostly in the theater and the inspiration of children feeling valued through the storyline, through the stories that she creates. And then we have Shari, who I think is also very inspirational to those that she touches. And I think one of the things that stood out to me about you, Shari, is that you enjoy hearing other people's stories, which I think is so unique and so wonderful that you probably pull that out of other people. And then we have Henry, who I think also is so unique, each one of you, in that his background is engineering. Who knew? And that he would then become interested in writing children's books and many other level of books. But I think the most fun part of it is that your sons have been involved in helping you write some of your books, and that I find so special, because I think a lot of my personal belief is that reading together is so relationship building, and so great they created those books with you. So I would like to start out with questions that would be general, and you can just participate as you feel moved to share. but I think it would be fun to hear from each of you as to how you got started. What inspired you to begin writing, and when did that occur? I'd love to hear that. Does anyone have
Well, I
sharing?
can start. I can start if you guys are okay with that. Well, for me personally, my passion for kids actually grew when I was like around 11 and 12 years old. So during that time, I used to participate in like youth camps. My parents would put me in different youth events, and I was really inspired by my youth leaders there. And I just knew at that time I had a passion for kids and I wanted to work with kids. So I didn't necessarily start off as an author, but I started off having a passion for children. And I continued on even in high school, mentoring and doing, starting up theater shows for kids. And I continued doing different work for children, and it kind of led me to become a children's author.
How fun. That's how lovely to have that so early in your life. So Shari, how about you?
Well, I had a sweet little girl once. I think she was like 6 years old, and she came up to me at a signing at the safari park and said, "What was the first story that you remember writing?" And for some reason, I thought of myself as a little 2-year-old with little fat legs hanging off my desk chair and scribbling something. And my daddy said, "What did you do there?" And I said, "I wrote you a story, Daddy." And then I read it to him. And I had this moment where I saw the whole thing again. Wow. And I said to the little girl, "Thank you so much for bringing me back to that memory. I would have lost it without you." And the first story I really remember, though, is when my cat had 13 kittens, and I wrote about that. And then put the pictures with the story, stapled it together, and then checked it out to my neighborhood friends. I was 5. Oh. And I just think I never evolved past that, wanting to share miraculous moments that made an impression on me in terms of story and share them with somebody else who may or may not have experienced the same thing.
Sure. Wow,
you
that's
know?
beautiful.
So,
so
I just see the stories everywhere, and I want to share them with people. That's it.
Very cool. And Tara, how about you?
You know, for me, it's hard to remember a time when I wasn't writing. I think as soon as I learned to read stories, I wanted to write stories, and I've just kind of been doing both together for as long as I can remember. I used to be much more confident about it. I remember in like 2nd, 3rd grade thinking I was like going to be a published author, like by the time I was like probably, 9 or 10. And I lost some of that confidence as I got older. So it's been kind of, a circular moment for me coming back to that, feeling like I could actually do it. So
that's so cool. It's amazing how early all of these, it's really like a calling, the writing, the ability to write, to express yourself. Henry, tell us about your inspiration.
So I'm the counterpoint to all that. I got my creative writing start much later in life because the inspiration to get me to start, I'd written technical stuff for work, but no fiction. And I had, my boys were maybe 6 and 8, and I wanted to write a story for them that I love fantasy, and I wanted to get them excited about fantasy. So I just wrote something, illustrated it with images off the web, and it turned into a project that they gave me feedback, and it became a family project. We ended up self-publishing it, and I discovered at 50 that I like writing for kids, and I've been doing it ever since. So it took me a while to figure it out.
That's great. Wow, it's fun to hear the different journeys. That's fabulous. So I think we would love to hear if animals have been a part of your journey as far as how, not necessarily in the books, but as a part of your lives, because we are here all as animal enthusiasts as well. Is there anything you'd like to share that relates to, some of you have used books extensively, or animals extensively in your books, but maybe there's a personal connection to animals you'd like to share as well.
All of my books are about animals. And the reason why is because I started out wanting to let kids know that animals face some of the same challenges you do, only in different ways. And so all of the illustrations for my books are realistic. The first one I wrote was But Not Gino, and it's about a short giraffe who feels useless as a giraffe because he can't do what the tall giraffes can do. But in the book, you find out what giraffes can do, and the fact that each one of them is unique. So, you know, Gino has a challenge that the other ones, that the children might have too. And Toby Came Late, the same thing, about a little caterpillar that comes late to the garden. Most of these are wild animals, but I did write one about a dog named Shayna who was quite miraculous, and a true story about a dog named Shayna that belonged to somebody else. But because what I find is that children are naturally drawn to animals. And so you can teach them about the animal and about themselves without being preachy or teachy or judgmental in any way. And then they take that and learn from it and give them confidence to handle a challenge that may or may not be the same as what they're facing. So and my family has always loved animals. I told my mother that I think she liked animals better than she liked us kids.
Certainly less complicated.
Yeah. She loved them so much. My brother became a veterinarian. So,
oh, that's great.
Yeah. So it goes pretty deep in my roots for some reason.
Thank you for sharing that. Wonderful. Lauren, I know you also have, I think, some closeness to animals. You want to share?
You said Lauren?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I use an animal in my book as well, but actually one of my favorite animals are horses. I feel like when I ride them, I get so much peace. So that's one of my favorite animals, but I used to, you too? So, but in my book, I used a dog character because I know, first of all, I love dogs too. And I know that children love dogs. And I believe that even when children work with dogs, they can learn a lot about character when they're training dogs and, you know, how to take care of dogs. Yeah. And the reason why I actually chose a dog is I was on a cruise with my husband one time, and there was a little boy who kept following me and my husband around, sharing his story about his border collie. And I was like, I have to make my dog a border collie. So that's my story.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. Tara, what animals come to your mind?
Well, I just lost my dog a couple months ago, actually, which was very, very sad. But she did actually sit. It was my dog Biscuit. She sat on my lap the entire time I wrote both of those novels, and I actually even put her in the acknowledgments of my first book because, and it is kind of a challenge to write around a dog a little bit because you have to reach around, but. I also think too, I haven't written a book about an animal, but I've used animals in different ways as far as like character development. I think it was the Brontes when they were writing, like if they had a bad character that was mean and they wanted to show that, they would have the character like do something mean to an animal in the story. And that would be like your signal, like this is the villain, you know? So I've used that kind of strategy before too, because it is, if you know, a quick way to get readers to connect with the character, you have them do something nice, or to show somebody's not so great, you have them not so great to an animal. So
interesting. Thanks for sharing that. And Henry, you have a dog right there with you. What is that dog's name?
My dog who has wandered off, his name is Iro. He's a rescue. He's like a beagle lab mix or something. Great dog. We've always had dogs. We're definitely dog people.
That's
and
have they inspired you with any of your writing?
He has not, but I certainly like writing about animals. I like personifying animals. So here I've got, these are Dinosaur Pirates. You know, obviously the sky's the limit with fiction, so you can have lots of fun. And here's one where the squid is the main character, and it's just a lot of fun. That I think the animals are just perfect for conveying lessons, and you can even throw a little nonfiction information about the animal as an appendix or an author's note. So you can get a little bit of nonfiction information, even if the story is completely fictional. But there's just, I'm with what Tara said, that you can tell a bad person if they're mean to animals. You know, It's
That's right.
it's a measure of your humanity if you can show kindness to animals.
Have any of you seen the series Save the Cat Writes a Novel, Save the Cat Writes a Screenplay? And that's like the totally how he came about, you know, this is how we do this. And yeah, there you go. Duh. Of course you all know about it.
So tell us a little bit about your selection of illustrators. Is that something, you know, in the journey and in the these treasures that you have created that so many people enjoy? What was that step like? How did you make those decisions?
So typically with a traditionally published book, you don't choose, that the publisher chooses
Got it.
who will illustrate. So the only time you get to have that kind of fun is if you're self-publishing.
Got it. Okay, so that was an ignorant question.
No,
That's
it
a good
wasn't
question.
actually. It wasn't an ignorant question because Henry is right. That's the way it's usually done.
Uh-huh.
But my books are published by Southwest Publishing Company. Their imprint for picture books is Blue Sneaker Press. And all three of my books are illustrated by somebody different that I chose. The first one was the hardest one to find an illustrator. I found him online. And a student, a former student's mom said, I worked with him at Apple. You might want to interview him. So we sat on the floor at Barnes and Noble and I told him the story and he sketched out some stuff. And I went, wow, that's really cool. So what do you think? I don't know. You want to be partners? And we partnered up on that book. And then this book, But Not Gino, needed a whole different kind of treatment because it needed to be completely and utterly scientifically correct, because I wanted kids to be able to see the science in the book. There was a question earlier on, one of the participants asked how illustrations are the most important part. And when I answered the question, I thought, no, they're not the most important part, but they tell a part of the story that it would take too many words to tell. And so this illustrator was amazing. And I met her at a Mailboxes, Etc. place. I saw a book that she had and I said, oh, those are great pictures. He said, I drew those. And I said, let's go have coffee. And then she and I became partners on 3 books. She did this one for me. She helped, one of the things I do is help other people do their stuff. She did the illustrations for this book and for my most recent book for the Alliance for Hope International called Goodnight Moonlight. She did all 3 books. She is fast. She is considerate. Yeah, she's awesome. And then this woman, Christina Wald, has a portfolio of children's picture books that you would not believe. And I adore her. She's wonderful. She gets a lot of her inspiration from her cats. And when we were writing about, when the story called for a hippopotamus that loved to kick its feet up in the air, she watched her cat and then made the hippopotamus kicking his feet up in the air in the pond. You know, so a domestic animal inspired her to write about, you know, make the picture for the hippopotamus. So, and I found her on children'sillustrators.com. And that was kind of an interesting thing, Henry, because the San Diego Zoo was our partner on that book. It was their 100th anniversary story. And so they had to have illustrator approval. And so my publisher said, okay, you go in and find 20 and then narrow that list to 10. And then when you narrow the list to 10, narrow it to 5 and have us pick the top 5.
Wow.
And everybody had her either first or second.
Wow.
And happily, she was the most excited for the project. So that was easy peasy.
That's great.
Yeah. And so I know that that's not the usual way to do this, but Henry is right. That's the traditional way of going about it, number 1. Number 2, most publishers won't allow you to pick your illustrator. But this guy was really nice about it. I said, you know, please.
That's great. What an interesting story. Thank you for sharing. So I think we have lost Lauren. Is she?
Yeah, she disappeared. I don't know what happened.
Okay, I hope she gets back on.
I hope so.
I think I'd love to hear you each share your favorite character in any of your books. I'm sure you might have one. Who would
It's like a Sophie's choice.
Yeah, right.
It used to be for me, but Toby is my favorite character. And partly because Toby's story happened in my backyard. But you know, when you write a book, it's like this little child you give birth to, and then after you publish your story, you send it off to college. And then it goes and does new things.
That's so true. That's a good way of looking at it.
And
Sarah, how about you? Oh, sorry.
The reason I want to say one little thing to share is that
Yeah.
kids see every monarch butterfly and they call him Toby. They want to be him for Halloween. And they tell me that. So that's why.
How sweet. That's wonderful. Thank you. Tara, do you have a favorite?
You know, mine keeps changing. Well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, Gracie is my main character. This is, I can hold this up. This is her in the first book. And she's been my favorite, but I do have, she's the story is about the fantasy where she's a storybook character, and so she is taken out of the story and into the real world as a baby, and she eventually goes in search of her author. So she's always been kind of my favorite, but I also really feel connected to her author because I've had a really fun time kind of playing around with that character and putting bits and pieces of myself and other writers that I know into that character. So and I always have a soft spot for my villain too, which probably doesn't say much about me, but it's so I got about 3 favorite characters, you know.
How fun. That's so cool. Must be so much fun to write. So Henry, what you have any comments on yours?
I do think it's a Sophie's choice. I couldn't choose a favorite. They're all fun and they're in their own way. So
It's a good answer. Lauren, do you have a favorite character in your books? I think you do probably, because you have a central figure.
Yes. A favorite character in my book?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would probably say, oh gosh, that's hard to choose. I love Beth and Mango. But I guess Babbling Beth, since she's more of the main character, I really love her because she's not a perfect person. And I think I love her journey of, you know, she makes mistakes and she goes through things, but she always learns a lesson. So I love that about her character.
Cool. That's wonderful. So are you all doing your writing as your main focus, or are you also doing other forms of work? And how do you handle wearing several hats?
That's a good question. I'll jump in if I've been struggling with that a lot lately, so I'll be I teach as well. So I teach for San Diego Community College District, and I've been teaching right now. I'm teaching four classes. So I have a hard time balancing. I always tell myself I'm just going to get up in the morning and write 3 pages a day. Lately, that has not been happening. I mean, but the truth of it is that I think it's hard to make a living full time as a writer. So you don't make that much, and so you have to kind of piece different sources of income together. But I'm getting better. I try to find that balance and sneak in the writing when I can. So.
That's great. That's great. How about Lauren? How about you? Are you a full-time author? I think you do several other things. Yeah.
Yes, I am a full-time author, but I do other projects for children. I'm working on a project right now, and then a lot of times I get offers to do different types of projects for kids and family-friendly entertainment. So, and yeah, I love to write, and always open for collaboration as well.
That's a good place to be. Collaboration is important. I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's good to put out both a word of encouragement and a word of caution to, if there are young viewers here. Writing is wonderful, and I encourage you to write, but don't give up your day job, because as Tara said, unless you're at the top of the field, like J.K. Rowling, I'd say maybe 1% of the authors you see in published books can make a living at it. It's lovely. Its rewards are primarily not financial. It's worth doing, but have a backup plan.
Sure.
Yeah, I would echo that too, Henry. I think that's a really good idea, but never stop writing. In other words, always write. And I did a lot of things before I could afford to look at writing as what I do. and I was a teacher for 40 years.
Yeah.
Laura and I taught theater. I have a degree in drama for the young. So
Oh, that's exciting.
I know we have a lot in common, but
Yeah.
and in order to do plays that I could do cheaply, I had to write my own that were family friendly.
Mhm.
And so I wrote a ton of plays for my kids to perform in the middle school. And I love that. But so basically when I retired from public education, I said, what you're going to do now is write. And it doesn't matter what you write, you're just going to write. And the other thing I would encourage kids or even adults, whoever you are, I would encourage you to belong to SCBWI. I would encourage you to connect with other authors and writers. Even if you think, oh, I'll never write anything, but I really want to talk to these people, then do it. Talk to the people. They all want to talk to you. And also go to writers' conferences if you can. If they're local, just go. And listen to people talk about what they write and why they write. Most of us write because we have to, because that's the way we have to breathe, we have to write, we have to eat, and we have to sleep. But that said, I think that that when I settled in, I realized that I never evolved past around 8 years old. And so I think like a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, and I decided that picture books were the perfect combination of story and children and animals and music, all my passions. So that's where I settled in. That's where I'm happiest.
Yeah, that's great.
So
she mentioned SCBWI. For those interested in following up, their website is scbwi.org.
yes.
It's the Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. It's an international organization, but they have a very strong chapter here in San Diego.
Yeah.
Very strong chapter.
I think I was gonna say diversification is important too.
Yeah.
So having like other investments and things like that, as he was talking about having other ways of making money, I always think that's important as well.
Sure.
And that's kind of what got me started helping other people get their stories out there. Because I thought, if I'm going to be a writer, then I'm going to have to help other people write too. I mean, if they want. And I learned I got a lot of joy out of seeing somebody get their first book in their hands. It made me almost happier than it made them for some reason. I don't get any credit for it. I just get excited about them doing it, you know.
Where can your books be purchased? Can you share, each of you, where we can purchase your books?
You can purchase through me. Through my website, which is storiesalive88.com. You can purchase through Amazon.com, all my books. You can also purchase mine from the San Diego Zoo store and the San Diego Zoo Safari Park store. You know, all the traditional ways you can get the books, but I would prefer that if you get them from Amazon, that you get them and you do that smile thing, and then you give money back to either Helen Woodward Animal Center or the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, especially now since you all have had to limit the amount of public contact that people have. If you go through Amazon to get my books, would you please hit that smile thing, whatever it is, and donate to the animal organization of your choice.
That's a good suggestion. Thank you. Thank you. Any other tips to purchase your books? Sarah?
My books are available on Amazon and some of the Barnes & Noble stores and on the Barnes & Noble's website, Walmart, and I believe Target. And you can also purchase products on my website at babblingbeck.com.
Great. Lauren, how about you?
Oh, mine are available pretty much anywhere you can buy books, or on Barnes & Noble, Amazon. I have signed copies, though, through our local store, Mysterious Galaxy, which is a wonderful bookstore, and I always suggest buying local if you can. Yeah, and they have signed copies of my books.
Say the bookstore again, Tara. Was it?
Mysterious Galaxy?
Oh, yeah. Yes, okay.
So same for me. They're available in those channels. But again, if you want to get a signed copy, you can order my book through my website, which is just my name, henryhertz.com.
Very good. Thank you so much. What are you working on right now? Do you have new projects? Is there anything you want to, anything you're excited about you want to share with us that's current and new? We'd love to hear.
I'm personally working on a live theater show for kids for the Babbling Bath product. And I'm also working on doing an animation for Babbling Bath. And I'm also collaborating with some other projects that have come my way. So I'm really grateful and excited about that.
Babbling Beth, did you say? Okay.
Yes.
And that's your website too, babblingbeth.com?
Yes, babblingbeth.com.
So cute. I love it. Any new projects?
I just finished taking a sketch comedy class that was really fun. So I wrote a little sketch comedy thing that probably wasn't very good, but it was fun. And I'm also working on a new middle grade, which is a kind of a combination of like historical meets mermaid meets spooky ghost story. So it's kind of a combination of things, but I've been having a lot of fun working on it. So
that's great.
I have okay, go ahead, Henry. I want to write something down.
As Tara knows from firsthand experience, I have a science fiction middle grade book, a novel I'm shopping around right now. So she was gracious enough to take a look at it and give me some very helpful feedback.
An excellent middle grade novel, I will say, with a lot of comedy in it. So there you go.
So I have that out there, and then I have I've been writing a lot of short stories for adult markets, and I just sold a very short story to Daily Science Fiction, which is a prestigious market in the science fiction and fantasy realm. And I've got a whole bunch of, I started writing horror. So here I go from writing picture books for kids to writing horror for adults. And I've been writing short stories and sending them out to magazines and journals and anthologies. So keep them busy.
How fun. Are your sons involved in continuing with the writing with you, Henry?
Oh no, they're older now. I'm not cool anymore, you know.
And they are not feeling the gift of writing. Is that?
They're not. They're focused. They're both in college, and they're both focused. The studies take up a lot of time, and so they've not. I hope they come back to it, but they've not been lately.
Yeah.
I have 2 stories out there in search of a publisher. I have to leave my current publisher because, well, for lots of reasons. So I have to leave my current publisher, and so I'm looking for, I sent a story out and I got a lot of amazing good feedback from editors and agents. Saying I should send it directly to, it's called Harati Stands Up, about a female hippopotamus who hears, sees, and smells everything, and she ends up standing up for animals that can't stand up for themselves. So it had all of my picture books, all my read to me, sing to me books have a song that helps to tell the story.
Yeah.
So there's sheet music for the song. There's access through my website to me reading the story and singing the song. So it's a different kind of package, and the technologies have made it much more affordable now. So cross your fingers for Harati that she gets out there, because I'm very fond of her. And then one called Cyclone Charlie, about a cassowary who saves his family from annihilation during a huge hurricane in Queensland, Australia.
So much creativity, it's amazing.
Cross your fingers.
Yeah, love it. So I think it would be fun to hear and learn from you all as to what are your habits with writing? Is it a daily thing? I think, Tara, you mentioned you try to write 3 pages a day, but is this something that you have different habits with this, quirky things that you do that make this work for you? Is there anything you can share with us that would inspire us and give us ideas for how you make that fit into your lives regularly?
Well, I sit down right where you see me now every day and work on my writing, but I've also learned that there really is something called a muse. And if the muse is not there, then I go step away and go either switch to another story or another manuscript, or go and work in the yard. I mean, just, step away from the writing for a little bit and wait for the inspiration and come back. I mean, I think it's good to have the habit of writing and trying to write every day, but sometimes if the creativity is not firing on all cylinders, and you just give yourself a little break or switch gears.
That sounds smart. Any other tricks that you all have? Tara, did you?
Yeah, I agree with Henry. I can't write every day either, and I try. I would like to, but sometimes it's just not coming. I usually write right here where I'm sitting on my couch. People always laugh because I did have a really nice writing desk that I never used. I don't think even one time, because I always end up writing on my couch for some reason. But I usually start my writing day by reading. I can't usually get in the kind of the mood to write unless I've read for probably about half an hour. And when I'm struggling, something that really works for me is switching from the computer and going to a notebook and pen. And there's just something about, kind of putting that hand to paper that really, really helps. So I'll mention it in case it's useful to anybody else, kind of switching that mind frame a bit.
So your advice is for all of us to come, anybody that needs to write should come to Tara's house and sit on her couch.
Sit on her sofa.
Sit on my couch, you wear your pajamas if you need to, and then bring your notebooks.
Bring your own tea bag.
That's so great.
I've been told, I love to, when I'm not writing per se, I'm working on a story, I like to practice noticing. And so I will go on a walk and sit down and notice things. And I might see a stump that has a grumbly face on it and write a little ditty something about this grumbly stump. And I may never use it, and who cares, but it's exercise. It's like doing yoga in the morning when you wake up. If you don't feel like working on a story, then use your muscles, use your writing muscles.
Yeah.
I carry pieces of paper with me everywhere, paper, pencil, everywhere.
That's really
and so if I'm in the era of COVID, you can't observe people very well because of the distancing and the masks and wanting to be at home where it's safe. But sometimes I turn off, you're going to laugh at this, Lauren, but I watch a series that I love that has horses in it. And I grew up with horses. So I turn the sound off and I write my own dialogue and my own descriptions. Just because I can't go out and observe cool things. So I turn on the television, turn off the sound, and have fun.
I love that. I think that makes you very unique. And I love that. I actually, I do write every day, but I pretty much journal, not necessarily a story every day, but I love to journal. So that's definitely something that I do. And in terms of when I write music, I hear music in my head and I'll sing it into my phone. So I could be doing anything and hear music. So I just start to sing into my phone and then I'll write down some lyrics or something later.
Oh, great ideas. Good habits. So I'd love to hear, for a minute, reflect on childhood, your favorite books when you were a child. Some favorite books.
Well, that's easy for me. It's Where the Wild Things Are. I love monsters ever since.
There you go. That's cool.
I mean, it totally captures what it's like to be a little boy. It's a great story.
It is a great one. It's a classic. For sure. Any other favorites?
For me, it was historical fiction. Anything with pioneers. I was really obsessed with the Little House book to the extent that I would wear pioneer clothes to school, which were in my mind were tights with snow boots and a dress. A little odd, but yeah, anything historical. So.
That's so great. I love it.
I think I had go ahead.
Go ahead, Lauren.
I don't think I had a favorite, but I did love Dr. Seuss. So anything Dr. Seuss, anything that rhymed, I really love stories like
Dr.
that.
Seuss, yeah.
I fell in love with Virginia Lee Burton's The Little House when I was a little girl. And I love all of her books. She has a really cool sensitivity for drawing and for storytelling. I love all her books, but The Little House, I searched and searched and searched and searched for an autographed copy of that book. I didn't find one, but I love that book. I love the Black Stallion series. I read it 85 billion times. Anything with animals in it, I love anything with animals in it, like the Just So stories by Rudyard Kipling. I committed a ton of those to memory just because I love the rhythm of the language. And I love why he wrote them too. And so I'm a very process person, so I love the backstory of all these things, all the books. Even as a kid, I liked knowing, why did you write this crazy story? So the book that catapulted me into writing for young people is called The Blue Faience Hippopotamus. And it's an extraordinary book, done beautifully. It was printed a long time ago by the Green Tiger Press, which is now out of business.
Yeah,
But I saw that book at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park's gift shop, and I said, someday my book's going to be there, right there. And doggone it, if Gino wasn't right there where I saw the Blue Faience Hippopotamus.
Well, we are so blessed to have this time with you, and we would love to have you share your stories on our Reading Legacy Story Time. We are going virtual like everybody else in the world. So please know that we would love to have your participation in sharing your stories. And I think you all are such accomplished people, and I think you've shared some wonderful, inspiring stories. I guess the last thing I might ask is if you have something that really, a theme or a topic that you feel is going to, well, turns you on regularly, but is there something that you feel is going to be triggering some new books, some new writing? Is there anything new?
So in my case, when I'm writing short stories, I'm typically doing so in response to a call for stories or an anthology. So the inspiration, I'm responding to a theme that's, it might be, write a short story that's about ghosts, or write a short story that's about animals. And so I give up choosing, and I respond like that. In the case of a novel, then you get to pick. And of course, I like humor and I like science fiction and fantasy, and so I tend to want to write in that space.
Do you think your engineering background helps you with that?
Not specifically. I mean, I can check some of the science, but this stuff is not. This is very soft science fiction, so I don't really need to be fact checking my physics and my math. So it's really just. Have fun with it, right? You got to write the story that's inside you and wants to get out. That's my advice. Just let it come out. Don't chase a trend. Just write what you want to write.
Yeah, exactly. I have some really strong feelings about bullying and people.
Are you pro or con?
Oh, please. There is no pro bullying. I mean, I just think, anyway, there are so many reasons why bullies bully and what stops them. But I've got 3 or 4 stories in my little hopper. None of them are good enough yet to go out and love on anyone. But I'm hoping that I can find some way into getting a series of books about animals and that kind of a thing. So I don't know.
Lauren, you have an interest in the anti-bullying theme with children as well, as I recall. Is that something you're going to continue or pursue?
I actually used to have a after-school kids theater program, and I helped build confidence and character and help kids to know that they have a purpose using theater. So I did the anti-bullying for a while, and I believe that's all encompassing of teaching kids character.
Yeah.
So my ultimate goal is to help kids know that they have a purpose in this world and that they have value. So that's the main basis for everything that I do, as it pertains to writing and any type of children's entertainment or family entertainment.
Beautiful. Very cool. Wonderful things here, folks. Thank you so much. I think that unless there's something you want to add, I feel that I have learned a lot. I've enjoyed so much visiting with you. And I think Fernanda's back. Fernanda, do you have some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Betty, thank you so much for leading that awesome discussion. I think we can learn a lot from all of you. So we do have some questions. And this first one is for Henry. You know, you write a lot of fantasy novels and sci-fi, and I know a lot of your characters may not particularly be animals, but seem inspired by animals. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
That's a really good question. Of course, no matter how creative you are, you start with what you know. So I have written books. I've written children's books that are not science fiction that have cuttlefish and squid. And so I do like tentacles. So I tend to, if I write a science fiction with an alien, I do tend to use a lot of tentacles, but I like to take things that we're used to and tweak them. So maybe the character has 2 hearts, not 1, which actually isn't really science fiction because they're animals with more than 1 heart. Or, you know, give a creature antennae that don't normally have antennae, or mix and match instead of, you know, it's a sentient species, but instead of having 2 arms, it has 4. So it's kind of fun to take things we know and just tweak them so that they become otherworldly, but they're still recognizable. And you have to, if you're writing for kids, you have to make sure that the character is empathetic and not so alien that it's creepy or scary or anything.
I love that. Thank you. Lauren, for Babbling Beth, I know you shared with us her superhero recipes. Obviously, PAWmicon is all about superheroes, the superhero adopters, and the amazing animals who save us right back. Why is it important to talk about superheroes? I know for Babbling Beth, it's simple acts that make her a hero, and I know we firmly believe that adopting is a superhero act. Why do you think that's important to share?
I think it's important to share because really anyone can be a superhero. And I think a lot of times we look at superheroes like there's just some type of supernatural type of thing, but we can be superheroes every day. Just simple things like helping someone across the street, or even something like helping someone in business, or, you know, anything that has to do with helping others. You're being, in a way, a superhero. So that's why I believe the message is really important. It's just to share that you can be a superhero and you can be a superhero every day.
I love that. And Babbling Beth actually has her own little sidekick too, right?
Yeah, she does. So her sidekick is Mango, her dog.
Nice. I love that. Tara, this question's for you. I know you talked about you had a beloved dog. Did he inspire you in your writing?
You know, it's at times it was nice to have that kind of companionship when I was writing. You know, it's just it's nice. You know, it's funny though, because when I first got her, I was writing my master's thesis, which was a middle grade novel, and at that point, you know, she was a puppy, so it was a lot of watching her to make sure she didn't go on the floor. And at that point, I thought, oh, I'm never going to be able to write again because I have to make sure this dog, you know, I have to train this dog. But no, then of course she got older and calmed down. But I did write a children's picture book about a dog who has a special pillow that reminded me of my dog, and it was never published, but it was a lot of fun. So yeah.
Shari, I wanted to ask you, what can we learn? You talk so much about animals in your stories. What can we learn about animals, and what can kids in particularly learn about animals when it comes to, I mean, I know for me, they teach me about compassion and empathy and forgiveness and kindness. Is that a message that you try to portray as well?
Yes, it is, but also how in nature's world they solve problems. Because children are natural problem solvers. They have creative ideas that never occur to you and me because they don't have boundaries like we do, you know, in their ways of thinking. And animals don't either. They're just thinking, how am I going to survive this moment? How am I going to move forward right now? And they have this wonderful gift of being in the moment and trying until they succeed. And that's kind of, no matter what character trait you're trying to point out to a young person, you can find it in an animal somewhere, some animal that has that trait naturally, whether it's empathy, whatever it is. And I learned a lot from watching animals interact with each other, you know, and domestic animals and actual and wild animals as well, and how they move forward with their lives. The key to that is, I think, what children have in common with animals, and that is staying in the moment and being motivated by a single factor at that particular time. And it allows them to succeed faster than a lot of grown-ups. Sorry, grown-ups.
I think we can all learn a lot from animals, and I like that you said that, living in the moment. They, you know, they love you right in that moment, and they're having fun right at that moment. So I think that's very true. Betty, I had a question for you. You know, as someone who's very involved in the world of children literature, why do you think it's important to introduce children to stories involving animals and featuring just animals in these kinds of stories for kids?
Well, I think that number one, there's a universal appeal. Children can relate to animals, I think, and there are, so as Shari described, there are so many lessons that animals teach us. But I think that animals in children's books are definitely something that children love, they learn from. And I think adults enjoy sharing the books that have animals in them as well. It's a universal bond. And of course, we are encouraging this reading experience as early as possible. So pictures of animals and the appeal of an animal is definitely very positive for kids. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, before we go, I'm sure, you know, viewers love hearing about the pets that you have. So I'd love to hear about any current or past pets or animals in your lives. Lauren, we can start with you. I know you grew up with some pets.
Yeah, so I grew up, I had a Shih Tzu, and her name was Chuchi. She was really cute little furry dog that I had, me and my brothers growing up. So that was my dog experience, my pet experience.
Any plans to add another furry member to your family?
I would love to. Right now, I can't quite right now, but I definitely want to in the future. And I would love to, in the little bit further in the future, have like my own farm where I have like horses and chickens and things like that, and raise my own food. And yeah, so
isn't that the dream, right?
Yeah.
Henry, I know you have a dog currently.
Yes, he's a rescue. He's a great dog, really smart, really friendly. I post about him on Facebook all the time. He's a rescue, not from Helen Woodward, but he's a rescue, and he's just great fun. He became a member of our family so quickly.
Does he hang out with you while you write?
Yes, he's not here now, but a lot of times he's lying on my feet while I'm sitting here at the desk.
What kind of a dog is he?
He's a beagle mixed with, he's like 60 pounds. So he's like a beagle lab mix or a beagle hound of some sort. Loves to run, very playful. Sometimes he'll come in here and climb up on my shoulder to see what I'm doing. So he's
They
fun.
think you're a lot smaller than they are, right?
Yeah.
Tara, I know you shared, or Tara, I'm sorry, you shared about your dog. What is your favorite memory of him?
Well, gosh, a lot. She was such a fun, sweet dog. Loved to go for walks. Although I think I took her on vacation once to Colonial Williamsburg, and she was getting so many walks in that it got to the point where she would hide under the bed when it was time to go walk around because she was sick of walking. So that's kind of a fun memory I have of her.
That's awesome. I feel like that's how a lot of our dogs feel right now during, you know, us spending so much time at home. It's like, how many walks could we go on? Okay, I know you have several animals that live with you.
Me?
Yes, sorry. I think.
Oh, yeah. You froze for a second, so on my screen. Yes, I have animals that choose to live in my yard. We had a little black cat, and a few years ago he crossed that rainbow bridge, but it's really fun to nurture nature's wild creatures and encourage them. And almost all of my books that I write that have been published are about endangered species, so that will make children aware that we are on the planet and we have skills that they don't have in terms of socialization and being able to caregive. So that's what we should be doing. We should be caregiving these animals. And what I want to do is link the young person with the animal so that they'll care about it and care about other animals down the road. So not only the story part, that's important too, but the fun facts section of all my books tries to encourage them to look at how special this animal is in this way, in this way, in this way. And so I learn a lot from watching the hummingbirds nest in my yard and the butterflies grow up and leave. And it's pretty cool when you see them over and over again building in the same nest, and you go, hey, are you the same lady that's laid nest the last 14 years, or are you a new bird? Obviously a new bird. But just knowing that they choose to come to my yard because they feel at home here makes me happy. Even though I had every manner of animal growing up, ducks and chickens and lambs and horses and border collies and beagles, you guys, and all those good animals. They made me realize how important they are and how little they demand of us and much they give.
That's right.
That's fantastic. I love that you said that, you know, the children, teaching them to love animals and to love all kinds of creatures. I know for us here at Helen Woodward, that's so important to us, and a lot of what we teach through our human education programs. You know, we believe that children, you know, are the future, and if we can teach them now to love all kinds of animals, then we'll have a much better world in the years ahead. So with that, I'd love to thank all of you so much for participating on this panel and being part of PAWmicon. You guys are all superheroes for participating and lending your time, so we're so appreciative. Betty, thank you so much for your time and moderating this this evening, and thank you again. We're gonna jump off here, but I so appreciate your support.
Nice to talk to you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
So nice to talk to you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.